Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Christy Felino, Senior Vice President at ServiceLink, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar titled The State of Home Buying, Buyers' Optimism and Outlook on the Current Market. Our expert panelists joining us today are Tony Thompson, the founder and CEO of NAMMBA, the National Association of Minority Mortgage Bankers of America. We also have Amy Daniel, Senior Vice President, and Antonio Little, Vice President, both joining us from ServiceLink today. Welcome, everyone, and I'm looking forward to a terrific conversation.
Likewise, thank you.
Good to be here.
All right, we're going to dive right in with some insightful consumer data on the state of housing and mortgage markets, because as we know, it's been a challenging market for buyers and lenders. Data from the 2023 State of Home Buying report found that 49% of respondents considered buying a new home in the past 12 months, but decided against it. Based on the report, many said options were too expensive and interest rates were too high. Amy, can you give us some insight on just how much these factors are impacting borrowers?
Absolutely, Christy, thank you. So yes, we are seeing that it is impacting borrowers directly. We've seen a definite cooling off period as we've seen rates, continue to climb. There's some nervousness, obviously, in the marketplace, and really borrowers are now able to afford much less than they were a year ago, and so they're really trying to figure out, what that new buy box is for them and how, they can make it work for their families.
And as a follow-up to that, why do you think the number of those who abandoned the home buying process was significantly lower in 2022?
I think the major play here is there was more availability in the market. There were more properties for sale. We saw a lot of sellers that were looking to maybe upgrade that house or relocate to a different area, and they had the equity to do it, and the interest rates were still low. So there was a lot of movement in the marketplace, back in 2022 that we're not really seeing right now in 2023.
Yeah, very true. Tony or Antonio, do you have anything that you want to add?
I agree.
All right.
Yeah, I think she covered it well.
Let's switch gears a little and talk about consumer sentiment. Interestingly, despite the market conditions, there's still quite an appetite to buy a home. The majority of respondents to the survey said conditions are favorable for buying. Tony, I'm interested in your thoughts on this topic. Our survey found that millennials and Gen Z are most eager to purchase. Does that line up with what you're seeing in the marketplace?
Absolutely, Christy. I think based on our research at Cultural Outreach, where we survey over 1,000 millennials in our Next Gen Home Buyer survey every year, what we're seeing and hearing from this cohort is that they want to achieve home ownership. They want to use home ownership as a way to generate additional income by buying potentially duplexes or multifamily properties as well. But the core driver for millennials in today's market is they understand the benefits of home ownership. They want to achieve home ownership. They just don't know how and where to start.
Antonio, I'm going to throw this next one out to you on the same topic. Considering the low housing volume and higher interest rates, why do you think those factors are not seen as deterrents to some buyers?
So, Christy, what I can tell from reviewing our survey as well as working with the lender partners out there is there's still that group of individuals that are generating this activity. I think Tony hit it on one, and that's the first-time home buyers, right? The millennials and the Gen Zs, they're not as focused on driving that interest rate focus. They are looking at first-time home ownership, right? They want to achieve that home ownership, so they're looking at it differently, right? And then there are those that are looking to reduce the size of their home or increase the size of their home. Kids may have moved out, or they may be starting families. And then you have those that may have bought too much when the rates were good, and they don't have a need for that. There's also those that might be relocating. They might be relocating for a job, or they might be relocating to get closer to family. And then traditionally, we've seen investor activity, right? So buying fixer flips or for rental property. So that's what's driving that purchase activity out there today. That's kind of, really surprising, right?
Yeah.
Christy, I think one other point I would love to make is that what we've also seen is from the millennial cohort, there's been a greater increase in looking at home ownership as a way to also build wealth vis-a-vis multifamily. And so there's been a tremendous amount of interest in from the millennial perspective in looking at how can I purchase a home that has a duplex or a multifamily property that can allow me to be able to reside in a place of my own that I call home, while also having the ability to help and carry that weight of that mortgage as well. And so we see that as an ongoing trend that will continue, certainly for millennials as they're looking for ways to reduce the cost of home ownership, but also grow their investment portfolio through home ownership.
Yeah, great points. Anyone else have anything else they want to add on the topic? All right, well, let's move on to auction and talk about its recent growth then. For the second year in a row, we've seen a surge of interest in auction properties. 40% of those that responded to the survey said they consider buying a home at auction. I was personally surprised by that number. Amy, I know you're very involved with auction at ServiceLink, so I'm interested in your thoughts here. What do you feel is behind this growing interest in auction, and what do buyers need to know about purchasing a property this way?
It is a super exciting time, Christy, for auction, and it's fun to be a part of. So what we're really seeing driving this is obviously the technology side. I think a lot of the millennials that we were just talking about, Gen Z, even Gen X, are very comfortable with technology, and having that ability to have properties and information right at your fingertips is a very big deal. Along with that, the entire title and closing process is seamless to them. A lot of things that we can do now are virtual or online. So, the e-close functionality, title, being at your fingertips, values being at your fingertips, really makes this an exciting and easy way for buyers to tap into markets that maybe they're not close to or near. So a very exciting time for auction.
Yeah, it's a great alternative to purchasing a home for sure. So like me, were you surprised that 50% of those who'd buy at auction would use the property as a primary residence?
Yes and no. So yes, because I think traditionally we have seen more investors in the space and using these perhaps as like rental properties as part of their portfolio and growth. But we've really seen a big focus in neighborhood stabilization programs, first-time buyer home programs coming through auction. And so I think we're starting to see the shift with owner-occupant through auction. And again, kind of looking at the types of individuals and groups that are purchasing at auction really plays on that owner-occupant, first-time buyer program. So we're excited to see, people getting into these homes and enjoying them. It's really great to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. Gentlemen, anything that you want to add about auction or buying through auction?
Christy, I think there are two takeaways that lenders can really glean from the data that we're talking about here today. First, from a Carvana effect, as I call it, from a millennial perspective, I think there needs to be a recognition from lenders that this will be and will continue to be a trend where consumers, particularly consumers of tomorrow, which are young, more diverse, more technological savvy, are going to look and opt for a journey that allows them to be able to engage and connect from that home ownership perspective, from a technology perspective, from beginning to end. And that's why I call it the Carvana effect. The second point, though, that I think lenders also have to glean and take away from this is that now that we have a more younger demographic audience who is also more tech savvy, who's also more education savvy in terms of wanting data, information. They need to be thinking about how do they position their marketing platforms, how do they position their social media platforms to provide the right level of content, education, and awareness around home ownership, around the products and programs that their institution offers to better engage and serve this marketplace. Because after all, based on our report and research, millennials spend somewhere between 6 to 9 hours a day on social media. So I think this trend is not going anywhere, and lenders have to start looking at how do they develop a marketing outreach strategy to connect and better engage their programs, products, and introduce their brand.
Really interesting ideas that you brought up there.
And Christy, just to kind of really quick,
oh, sure, you may go ahead.
Just to tap onto what Tony mentioned, you know, the education behind this and really getting the buyers the information up front. All of the auction sites and properties available have information on, you know, the properties themselves. So buyers have that right, you know, in the comfort of their own home, they can, you know, research and learn about those properties before they place the bid. So to Tony's point, it's a great strategy and way to be for a buyer.
Easy and convenient. All right, so let's continue with our conversation around mortgage technology. As we've all seen, mortgage technology has evolved over the years. From the application to closing, today's buyers have options to complete their transaction almost completely digitally. And that's a big hit with consumers. Antonio, this question's for you. Borrowers say convenience and time savings are the biggest benefits of using technology, but what do you think lenders can do to make it even more of a seamless process?
So, Christy, what we're seeing now is a huge push by the lending community to roadmap their borrowers' digital journey. I think everyone's realized just what we've been talking about here today, right? That people are most comfortable with a workflow that's easy, visually appealing, can be done at their convenience from anywhere. I mean, the millennials, Gen Zs, that the devices in their hands, their tablets, their laptops, they're taking them everywhere, right? And they want to have that convenience to do whatever they need to do whenever they want. I think the lending community is also solving for this already by partnering with companies that deliver a strong POS system, or by partnering with appraisal and settlement services firms that can plug right into that digital roadmap. I think ServiceLink has certainly seen an influx of interested lenders, given our ability to serve up an instant scheduling workflow for both appraisal and the closing scheduling piece, then offering e-closing option as an added benefit. Whether it be hybrid or run, those are some of the digital experiences you can pass on to your consumer as a lender. In addition, we're also equipping the lender or the LO with an instant title workflow so that at the point of sale, they know what they're dealing with. They can guide that borrower down an expedited path or even a traditional path as they're getting today, depending on what's found on that particular report. What we've seen is that those lenders that are tapping into our instant title piece, they're able to skinny up their app to close cycle times down to 12 to 15 days sometimes. So that's a cost savings and definitely gives a better borrower experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Tony, how do you think lenders can use some of this downtime to further improve their technology offerings?
Well, Christy, I think, first of all, Antonio made a great point that lenders have to really look at their tech stack right now and make sure that they keep the customer journey and the borrower experience top of mind. Particularly in today's environment, what I would also say is there's a huge opportunity for them to pivot that borrower journey to a new borrower, the multicultural segment, single females, communities of color, millennials, LGBTQ. And one of the things I think as lenders look at the window of opportunity they have to say, how do we better serve these segments? How do we better engage them? And then how do we also make sure we leverage the technology of organizations and companies like ServiceLink to deliver that end-to-end streamlined, efficient delivery from a customer journey is going to be paramount. The opportunities for lenders to compete with borrowers is going to become scarce. So now more than ever, each borrower becomes a huge, important opportunity to engage, connect, and keep. Engage, connect, and keep them in terms of their integration, in terms of their engagement with the organization, so that they can ultimately originate and serve that customer from the point of sale to the closing. And so for me, one thing that I would advise lenders to do right now is revamp their marketing outreach as it relates to point of sale, on how they communicate and engage with consumers, particularly understanding this new segment, millennials, single females, which are going to be huge in the future in terms of home ownership over the next 3 to 5 years, as well as communities of color and LGBTQ. Serve them how they want to be served, not how you want to serve them.
Great advice. Great advice. Anyone else have anything they want to add?
Christy, I'll just add, I agree with Tony. I think, rates are rates, right? And we can only control so much when it comes to that. So, I think Antonio and Tony both made great comments about, this technology is going to be the differentiator between like who that borrower is going to go to and who they're going to use and trust with, arguably one of the biggest decisions of their life. So it's definitely something that they need to pay attention to and definitely focus on.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about refinance activity. So despite higher interest rates, consumers are still looking for refinance opportunities. 32% of respondents to the survey said they are very likely to refinance this year, which was unexpected to me. Antonio, any thoughts on what's driving the interest in refis even though rates are up?
Yeah, I can speak to that, Christy. They're definitely, refis are definitely still in play, but just not nearly as plentiful as we've seen, right? We got used to it being so high. In reviewing the survey and speaking with our lending partners, I think the bulk of the activity are coming from 4 different areas. People are looking to get a better rate. Believe it or not, in our survey, I think we saw that 19% of the respondents have a rate higher than 7%. Yeah. I mean, that was pretty shocking, right? Given that we trended so low so long. And then there are others that are looking to change the terms of the loans. Maybe they are looking to move from a fixed loan to an adjustable, or vice versa, from an adjustable to a fixed, just to change the terms and make life a little bit better for them based on their financial need. And then those that are making home improvements, we've historically seen that as driving force of refi activity. And then lastly, I think to pay debt down. People have accumulated so much debt over the last couple of years, especially sitting home with the pandemic going on. I mean, I think everybody was sitting around shopping or trying to entertain themselves, right? So I think paying the debt down has been a big focus for many, and they're driving some of the refi activity.
Right. Yeah. And as a follow-up to that, how have you seen lenders try to attract refi applications during the current market?
So I think some lenders have shifted their focus, right? I think, and Tony brought up a good point at targeting underserved or unserved markets and communities. There's a demographic that has a need, and the lenders are aware that, hey, you know what? We can create some traction by targeting certain areas of our industry and marketing to those. So I think that's one. LOs are creating a niche market by targeting those that are in need of settlement, divorces, taking somebody out of the property. So that is huge right now. LOs are targeting that group. And then lenders are also providing educational and credit counseling tools that are helping drive some of that refi activity during the downtime. And then I know some lenders are actually going back and looking at what loans didn't close and why. Are there a pool of individuals that we can help reach a level where they can become approved and drive some refi activity off those previously, providing applications that way. So I think those are 4 areas that I've seen lenders target to generate some refi activity during these downtimes.
It sounds like they're getting creative.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, Tony, I have a follow-up for you. What's the best advice that you could give lenders right now, considering refi activity is down?
If I'm a lender today, first of all, Christy, I have to realize that the game has changed. The old playbook was sell, sell, sell. The new playbook is educate, educate, educate. And what I mean by that is really simple. Over the last 2 to 3 years, lenders have competed over lowest interest rate, fastest closing costs, quickest time to close, as well as closing cost incentives. Today's borrowers, which are young, diverse, are looking to understand the mortgage process. Everyone who's gotten a mortgage or who wanted a mortgage over the last 3 years essentially have that mortgage. And really over the next 3 to 5 years, the probability of them giving up that mortgage at a 3, 4, 5% interest rate is very, very low. So understanding that what you did pre-pandemic and during the pandemic when interest rates were low as an organization is not the same playbook that will work in this new normal. And so the most important thing that lenders can do, whether you're looking at refinance opportunity, as Antonio mentioned previously, or certainly the all-important purchase originations, which, by the way, the MBA today just recently downsized their mortgage originations forecast for the remainder of this year. And so as a lender, you've got to pivot from selling rate to helping your organization and your originations in your brand focus on educating the consumer, providing them with content about the home buying experience, the benefits of that, and then most importantly, your ability to help be that trusted advisor to guide them through the process. And so for lenders that can make that pivot the second half of the year and focus on content around engaging consumers, educating consumers, building trust with consumers, they're going to see that pipeline and that funnel, that lead generation funnel will grow more quickly than others who are focusing on selling rate.
Yeah, great ideas, great thoughts. Anyone else from the group have anything that they want to add? All right, well then let's talk about home equity. So while refi activity is down, as we just discussed, home equity lending is up. 44% of homeowners in our survey said they plan to take out a home equity loan this year, and millennials lead the pack. Amy, my first question is for you. 21% of homeowners in the study said they had more than $100,000 in equity in their homes. Do you think home equity boom will continue for a while, or do you think it's going to fade?
I do, Christy. So I think that what we're seeing here, and what I think we'll continue to see through the back half of this year, you know, with the Fed's kind of taking a pause on rate increases, gives people a little bit of comfort that perhaps like the end is in sight there. So it'll give them that confidence that they've had over the last, year when taking out these home equity lines of credit. So basically, I think it will continue the back half of the year. I think we see a lot of the millennials are work from home, remote workforce, looking to make improvements into their homes, make that like tranquil place that they can go after work and really just kind of put that money into their home that, they worked hard to get. So I think it'll continue through the rest of this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. So based on the survey, making home improvements and paying off debt were the top reasons for taking out a HELOC. Tony, I'm curious about your thoughts here. Are you seeing any other trends in this space?
Well, I think the opportunity is for lenders to realize that, particularly in communities of color, there's a lot of untapped equity. And so the ability to go back to, again, moving and pivoting from a selling environment to more of an education environment really would bode well for lenders in terms of tapping into this untapped and unserved, as we like to call it, not served market from a home equity perspective. There's tremendous pent up demand in communities of color, particularly older communities where you have homes that are paid for. And to Antonio's point early on the refinancing side, consumers are a little bit of cash strapped, and they're looking at, how do I increase cash flow? How do I make sure I can build and generate wealth and support my day-to-day needs? And so again, I think lenders will be surprised by creating an outreach strategy around the benefits of home equity and how that can benefit the consumer, particularly in communities of color, will result in additional mortgage volume as well.
Yeah, certainly, certainly. Antonio, I have one last question on this topic. So 11% of homeowners didn't know how to take out a home equity loan. Would you encourage lenders to do more education around this particular area? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think education is key, Christy. I think that should be a given, right? Especially everything we talked about today centered around technology or educating the consumers. There's definitely missed opportunities there. However, we have seen lenders come on board with commercials, more doing posts to social media. There's more hosting webinars. But I think everybody's starting to identify that some lenders can quickly pick up some loyal consumers by providing that level of education. Maybe it's time to even get back to the basics and offering evening seminars to discuss loan types and how to get approved for a loan, or what does it mean from a benefit perspective. It would be nice to see the bar education continue through webinars, mailing campaigns, commercials, and so forth. There's definitely value in education, as our survey showed that 10% are not even applying for these loans because they don't know what they are or how. So there's that untapped group. In addition to all the groups we've already discussed, there's that untapped group of the people that don't know. So I think there's definitely some value in providing levels of education.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yep.
Would anyone else like to add anything on home equity before we move on?
I agree.
Okay. All right. So it looks like we have a few minutes to answer some questions that came in from our viewers. The first question that came in is, what are some advantages of the auction home buying process versus the traditional home buying process for both investors and owner-occupied borrowers? Amy, do you have any thoughts on that you want to share?
Absolutely. So I think one of the most kind of exciting advantages of buying at auction is the previews of what's coming available to market. So unlike an MLS listing, the auction is able to post those, previews of what's to come. So it really gives both the owner occupant and the investor kind of a jump on, an area that they might be looking into, what's available, what's coming available. So I think the preview there through the technology is huge. The ability to bid and buy remotely is another huge factor. When we talk about, as we have like millennials, Gen Z, very comfortable with technology, they don't want a long drug out process of like having to traipse around and go look at a bunch of properties and then figure out, okay, now I have to go to my closing company and I have to close and I've got to have an appraiser come in. That whole process for them is like antiquated. So I think having the ability to buy at auction, both the investors, that we see and the owner occupants are very eager to purchase at auction. And I think this is a trend we're going to see moving forward. So we're excited.
Great. All right, our second question that came in, knowing buyers' appetites for digital mortgage experiences will only continue to grow over time. What are some small incremental steps lenders can take to bring more tech into their processes? Antonio, do you have any tips to help them get started?
Sure. I think lenders can partner with companies that are serving up user-friendly, visually appealing tech options throughout the mortgage process, Christy. I think maybe begin by securing that POS that we were talking about early on. Or maybe partner with that appraisal, title, or closing firm that has a digital workflow that they can plug into their digital roadmap. Lastly, they can also look at e-closing options. Is there a platform or process that they can adopt to include an e-closing strategy for their group, for their mortgage process.
Yeah, great. All right, and Tony, I'm going to lean on you for this last one here, but of course, if anyone else wants to chime in, please do so. So our third question that came in from our viewers is, Gen Z is the emerging home buying demographic to watch. In your experience, how are they different from their older home buying counterparts? What are they looking for in the home buying process?
So a couple of things, if I'm a lender and I'm looking at this cohort of fast growing buyers that are approaching over the next several years, the first one is education, making sure that you can educate this cohort in terms of the benefits to home ownership. The second one is making sure you build and establish trust. Now more than ever, we are dealing with consumers that really want to know more about the institutions, the organizations, and the employees that they're working with. And so they're researching these companies, their originators online. You can tell your story through social media in order to build that trust. And then last but not least, as Antonio stated and several of the panelists throughout the session today, tech platform that is omni-channel, meaning providing different on ramps and off ramps for your consumer to be able to engage and connect with you, is going to be paramount, because it's about how they want to do business with you versus how you want to do business with them.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Well, wow, this was a great discussion today. As we wrap up, I just want to mention that we have some great resources available for you to download and view, including the full 2023 State of Home Buying Report. You can click on the resource widget at the bottom right of your screen to check them out. I want to thank each of our panelists for their time today. I appreciate your insight and your expertise. I think we had a great conversation. And thanks to all of you for joining us for this webinar. I hope you make it a great day.